Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Unscripted Leadership. I am your host, Heather Arrico, Vice President of Enterprise Sales and Sales Engineering for Comcast Business. Unscripted Leadership focuses on Comcast Business's role in the tech industry and how it serves its clients. The podcast highlights executives' challenges in their respective industries and how technology is enabling better efficiencies and productivity. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast sites, including iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. For our first episode today, I have the privilege of talking to Kim Rometo, Senior Vice President and Chief Innovation and Technology Officer for the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena. Welcome, Kim, to Unscripted Leadership.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather. First episode.
Yes, glad for you to be a part of this. So let's jump right in. Kick us off, if you will, by sharing with the audience your background, Kim, and your journey really to becoming SVP and CITO of the Atlanta Hawks.
Happy to. So I'm a big believer that no one succeeds alone. So my story is peppered with people who helped get me to where I am today. And I think it starts off very early. When I was a little girl, my father's an aeronautical engineer by trade. And so I grew up soldering circuit boards, playing with transistors and diodes.
Wow.
I was a ham radio operator when I was like 7 or 8, which, again, most people probably don't know what that is, but that's okay. And did all the science fairs. It was wonderful. And then as I got older, when there wasn't a whole lot of STEM back then, I didn't want to be a nerd. And so I shied away from those, the love of technology and drifted a little further from that. So when I went to college at Ohio University, I started off as a mass communications major and found that it wasn't challenging enough. Like I wasn't inspired as I thought I should be. I'm like, college is supposed to really, be what drives it home for you, what you're going to do for the rest of your life, right? So I went and talked to a wonderful advisor, Dr. Trevor Roycroft, who suggested the Information and Telecommunications Systems program, and thought, understanding my background, he was like, I think this is going to be a good fit for you. It'll be a challenge, but it still involves, the communications aspect as well as the technology. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I was one of 8 women in the program. There weren't too many of us, but that's okay. And there were some tough days. I mean, there were nights where, it was 3:00 in the morning in the engineering lab and my code wouldn't compile and I was in tears, and we didn't even have cell phones back then, so I couldn't call anybody to complain about it. But eventually the code did compile and started, really understanding the coursework. And I'd say the pivotal moment for me was when I got my internship. So thanks to Jonathan Ray and Brian Ireton, I got interned with AT&T in Columbus, Ohio, and learned so much in the service delivery aspect. And the neurons started firing, and I started connecting the OSI model and what I was doing in my lab and coursework into what we were doing in the field and what we were delivering. And I fell in love with tech at that moment. Like I knew I was set up to do what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
That's great.
So I graduated from Ohio University, and I moved back. I moved with AT&T to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And was part of the sales leadership program, which was great, except 4 months later, SBC bought AT&T, and they termed all of us. And so here I was, 22 years old in a city I didn't know, and I was bound and determined to make it. I was not going to go back to Ohio.
One of 8, bound and determined. One of 8.
Exactly. And so I put my resume on Monster, and 6 weeks later, I had a job offer from America's Mart. John Portman was founded it, and it was a Portman family company. And really started my career there and just looked for opportunities to raise my hand, to say I want to take on more, I want to do more. The CFO throughout the later part of my tenure really became my mentor, Michelle Barton, and she saw in me something that maybe I didn't necessarily see in myself. Mm-hmm. And so I grew. And then when John Portman passed, the family decided to sell the company, and Blackstone bought America's Mart. And Blackstone is wonderful private equity. We were so fortunate, but we were merged with another portfolio company. So they flew all the executives out to Las Vegas, and we were all in a room together, and they said, well, we're looking at the future of the organization, and in 6 months from now, half of you won't be here, but we fully expect that everybody be collaborative and cooperative, work with Bain & Company to outline what the future of the organization looks like. And I have to say that was probably the toughest 6 months of my life, because you knew you may not bear the fruit of all of the labors, but at the end of the 6 months, I was appointed the joint CIO of the organization. I was the first female CIO in the Blackstone real estate portfolio history, which was a real proud moment, except that you won't find that part on my LinkedIn profile, because 5 weeks later, I got a call from the Miami Dolphins, which when I got the call, Ted Hogan, wherever you are, Ted, thank you so much. Ted Hogan called me, and he'd seen what I had done as part of the world's largest beacon deployment at the time from a road show over the 7.2 million square feet in America's Mart. And I laughed and I said, I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong person. Like, I don't know anything about sports. I don't know why you're calling me. And he said to me, Kim, let me ask you a question. How big are the largest trade shows you put on? And I said, well, 8 days straight, 16-hour days, 100,000 people. And he goes, this is 65,000 people for 4 hours. You're going to be fine.
You've got it.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm glad he believed in me, because I didn't believe in me at that point. But sure enough, there were no female CIOs of any of the clubs. There was the league level, but none at the club level. And I thought, I have to do this. I need to do this. So packed up the car, and my husband is wonderful and supportive, and we drove to Miami and started the next 3.5 years of our life. And I got to do amazing experiences: Super Bowl 54, National Championship, Miami Open, the Dolphin season. We built a new practice facility, Baptist Health Training Complex. In 11 months, stood up the Formula One Miami Grand Prix.
Wow.
It was a whirlwind of events. And while last year, while the Miami Open was going on, I got a call from the Atlanta Hawks. And it wasn't even a phone number I was supposed to answer. I believe the universe does point you in the right direction.
Yes.
And had a wonderful conversation with the Hawks. And Atlanta's home now. I love Atlanta. I love the city. And so it was the perfect opportunity to come home. I made my mark down there. I did what I wanted to do. I think I set the team up for success. Wonderful people down there. To Tom Garfinkel and Brandon Shore and Dan Casperson, I will be eternally grateful for giving me the opportunity to fulfill a vision of what technology should look like in Miami. But understanding what the Hawks wanted, understanding what State Farm Arena, the opportunities that presented themselves, it was time to come home. Mm-hmm. And so, again, husband and I packed up the car and moved back to Atlanta. And what a wonderful year it has been. We've gotten to do some fantastic things. I was able to establish a roadmap in September, and had the support of Steve Koonin and ownership to really fulfill that roadmap. We've now gone from 6 employees to 3 times that. We're at 18, which is great. We've established an enterprise application division. We've established a product team, and doing all of the traditional infrastructure that one would expect, and all the game technology. So it's been really, really fantastic, and I am very grateful to Joel Browning and to Steve Koonin for giving me the opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Well, and they're excited to have you. We know. I heard a couple things there. One is I heard don't go it alone. And I think that's an important message for everybody's just path, right, in their career path. So that's great that I'm sure you'll tell us more about bringing everybody to the table here in a little bit. The other thing I heard is listen, answer the phone call. Okay. Yes. When the phone rings, answer the call. And then 2 is to really listen, because, you could have told that professor, no, I don't want to get back into IT, but look at what that sparked and where you are now. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty incredible. And, speaking of incredible, when we met, we just got each other. It's just this immediate connection. And I'm like, you're my people. What is it about Kim? You talked about not going it alone. What is it, other experiences that you've had that make you this instant connector, right? And make people feel that way to you, just drawn to you and instantly connected to you?
Well, I think there were 2 formidable experiences that I had. One was early on. I was doing a lab in college, and this one's not a positive experience, but I was assigned with an upperclassman, and we were setting up a network, and it was really my first time understanding, some of the iOS commands and how to program up a network. So it was taking me a little longer, and he got frustrated, and he just said, "Just step out of the way. I'll do it." And that moment, taught me 2 things. One, it's that I was going to work really, really hard, so I never had to have another moment like that in my career. And 2, that I never wanted to make somebody else feel that way.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And then the other for me would be something that Michelle Barton taught me early on, which is much more positive. It's not caring who gets the credit. It's about planting the seeds. So things that we want to grow and blossom 6 months from now, 12 months from now, planting the seeds with people who've got influence and who have the ability to make change. Do that all the time, no matter what the initiative is. Planting the seed, watering the seed, and watching it grow in someone else's garden is so incredibly rewarding. And you feel fulfilled because you've let other people be successful and then plant their own seeds.
Yeah. So true leadership is very selfless because it's all about how we grow others. And I imagine you've grown a great bench out of operating in that way through the years too, right? You're bringing up your bench players.
I'm very fortunate that I had somebody tell me recently that it's my coaching tree. So one of my former employees is now the head of technology down in Miami, and so he's the first of the coaching tree. So I hope it is a very broad coaching tree. I think that would be what I'd like a legacy to look like.
Just your impact on others. It's interesting that you use legacy because I think that's what, when you told your original story about how you got started, that's what people saw in you, was the great leader that you are and the potential that you had throughout time. So it's just great to give back in that way and see you do that for others. That's awesome. All right. So we talked about, speaking of giving back, we talked about this organization you've been a part of. And in fact, you helped found the Miami chapter of what's known as Chief. So can you share more about Chief and how you're really progressing DEI and B and getting more seats at the table for female executives?
Yes. And I love the and B. I think that one is so important.
It is.
Belonging is a huge part of success in this area. So with Chief, I was approached by a New York chapter originally about becoming a founding member down in Miami. And what I love about the organization is it's about giving executive women an outlet, getting them to the C-suite, and keeping them there. And I think that part's critically important. It's not just a milestone to say, oh, we've got 2 women on our executive committee.
Not a check the box.
You're
That's
keeping
right.
2 women, and how are we continuing to grow and have parity, right?
Great.
For me, what's been most impactful about Chief is actually the core groups that they establish. So I meet monthly with my core group, and it's other female executives. So we've got a chief marketing officer, a chief executive officer, entrepreneur, just a bevy of women from other industries and other verticals that are fantastic that I can use as my corporate board, if you will. So when I was debating whether to take the job at the Hawks and to really, if I had done enough in Miami, that was really the only group I talked to because they knew what I was going through. They had changed jobs. They have worked at big companies. They understood the brands that were in play. And that was so fantastic. So you've got this first half of a 2-hour session every month where it's executive coaching, peer coaching, if you will. And then the second is a leader-led session. So some topics, a deep dive into some topic and really helping us be better for our employees and for ourselves and for our families. And that has been hugely impactful in my life to have that group of women that I can depend on that understands what I go through, and for me to understand a little bit more about them. I don't understand the entrepreneurial experience. I respect the men and women who do that because it is not easy. So having that time set apart to also have empathy with others is hugely important.
Yeah, you've heard the saying, it's lonely at the top, but I think it's just great that you found this way to continually stay connected and influence others too, right? Because you're a big influence around that table, monthly in those meetings too. They're leaning on your experiences because I think one of the first questions I asked you was, hey, how did you go from America's Mark to Miami Dolphins? And, the truth is, again, just your great leadership through the years and people seeing you for who you are.
Thank you.
So I'm sure that you show up for them every month as well. And that's valuable.
Yeah, I try because I hope that they're getting as much value out of their time as I'm getting out of mine.
Yeah, no doubt. That's great. So this is talking about, meeting with other chief executive officers, chief marketing officers, chief operation officers, et cetera. Tell me about what's the hot topics when you meet with other CIOs and CITOs.
Oh, everything AI at the moment.
Okay.
ChatGPT-4, what's happening in the space, what's going to transform our environments. I was at a dinner, an executive dinner, about a month ago, and it got very heated. And you've got two camps in the AI space. One that is eternally optimistic about what AI will do and how it will transform the human experience. And then you have another camp that is very pessimistic, maybe Terminator-esque, if you will. I personally am in the optimist camp, and what I tend to focus on is actually how I think AI will disrupt higher education. If you look back at the education system over the last 50, 100 years, it's all been memorization based. So whoever could remember the most became the doctor, the lawyer, most successful in our communities because they could recite the law. That's probably thousands of years old as we think about it. And what I think AI will do, what I hope it will do, is become a great equalizer. So that instead, what we value as intelligence will be curiosity, will be question asking, will be just inquisitiveness in general. I think I saw where prompt engineers for AI are currently making around $330,000 a year.
Wow.
Because asking the right question is so very important. And I hope that that's what translates to the AI journey that we're embarking on. It's wonderful to be standing at a precipice at this point in the technology history and understand the impact that it's about to have, and to be optimistic about that impact.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think to some degree you can't fight it. It's coming. So
absolutely.
Back to where we started, don't go it alone. Let's figure out how we can double down and make this help us.
Correct.
But curiosity is really one of the top leadership pillars, depending upon anybody that you look at, right? In leadership, they stay curious. That's how they continue to grow. So it's interesting to think about that AI is going to help us in that way, and that it's going to help kids even as they come up through K through 12 and through university systems, and not leave anybody behind, if you will. That's a great take. All right, great. So can you also share with me, we're going to pivot a little bit here, but what's a charity or community investment that's a passion project for you?
Yes, this was great. When you join an organization, especially at this level, you really take the time to try to understand the culture of the organization and what's important to the organization. And the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena, we have a wonderful, wonderful partnership with State Farm. And in fact, we have a multitude of State Farm Good Neighbor Clubs scattered across the city. So we look at these community centers and stand up the Good Neighbor Clubs. And what's been really fun for me is we'll have STEM nights. So we go and we expose, children who may not have experienced a lot of technology to robotics. We'll showcase drones. We'll showcase, programming and actually music education and how music is technology at the end of the day. It's been a wonderful initiative to be part of and to be an advocate for. And we're just so blessed to have that relationship with State Farm and with the communities and the people in the communities who want to expose their children to these offerings. That little seed, again, we're talking about seeds.
Yes.
That little seed for me with my dad, started off what has been a wonderful career. I mean, I get to give people some of the best experiences of their life. Who wouldn't want to do that? And so my hope is we're planting the seed for someone else for what they could be doing the rest of theirs.
And giving them access. I mean, some of these kids may not have access to that. So it's so great that State Farm is doubling down on, the future of our world with the kids. So
absolutely. And then it's not lip service. It's not rhetoric. I mean, we're there. We're as involved as an organization. And I love the authentic servant leadership that it provides.
Yeah, no doubt. That's great. It's not just about the fans. It's about so much more, and how can we give back? That's important. All right. Speaking of this, so speaking of the fans, what technology trends are you excited to explore? Because we talk about it. One of the very first things you said to me was, hey, we're tech first. We want to be tech first, and we are tech first. So how does Comcast help us do that? We'll get into that in a minute. But, why is that important to you, and what does that look like for the Atlanta Hawks?
Absolutely. We were led by Steve Koonin, and he really talks about technology being relevant and reliable and removing friction from the fan's experience. And so that's a big focus for us, is from the time the fan leaves, decides to buy a ticket, coming to the arena, going through security, going through ticketing. How can we reduce friction? What can we do with point of sale? We recently launched an initiative with Global Payments to look at our commerce and completely overhaul that. And then it's about more than the friction reduction. It's about the surprise and delight, and also for us, it's sustainability. We were very fortunate to be the first certified zero waste arena in the country. And what that really means is we divert more than 90% of our waste from landfill. And that starts with supply chain. Are you sourcing compostable goods? It includes working with partners like Comcast to figure out, water meters and other things that we can be doing to look at how we reduce our footprint. It's wonderful that we are empowered to go on these journeys that impact so many different areas. The fans are at the heart of everything we do, but we try to think, globally as well as locally.
This is great because if I think back to early on in our careers, we thought of technology as maybe just networks. That's what maybe our people think or our customers think or our fans think, but the truth is that it's so much more. And to think that your department is running all of that, including AI, I'll call it IoT efforts or sustainability efforts, is just that technology is in charge of all of that these days is really powerful. So thinking about that at Comcast Business, all of those things are options too. It's not just networks anymore. It's all of the services that we just talked about and more, and really servicing that ecosystem. So talk to me about why you choose us and continue to partner with Comcast Business.
Of course. I have to say first, if we were just doing pipes, how boring would that be?
Yeah.
What a wonderful evolution to now be able to see all parts of the business and understand it. I do fancy myself an enterprise architect at heart. So understanding data and systems and what gets us to a great place. And Comcast has been a wonderful partner in that evaluation. So I think when we think about Comcast as a business, we think about the depth and breadth of services offered. So your security, your observability, DDoS mitigation. We move into sustainability. We start talking about bandwidth. We talk about the fan experience. I remember when I first met you, I wanted to remove friction. I wanted the splash page off the arena Wi-Fi. And we talked for maybe 1 minute, and I told you why I wanted to do it, and you instantly got it. There was no pushback. There was no, are you sure? We had a plan.
I'm with you. Yes.
And so you helped make that a reality, and you were a partner in obtaining our vision. And that's why we choose Comcast. That's why we will continue to choose Comcast, is because of those things.
That is so great for you to say and share those experiences with everyone. Thank you for sharing that. And look, we really appreciate your insight today. I personally appreciate getting to know you, you sharing more about who you are today with all of us. We thank you so much for being a Comcast Business customer, but a true partner. And you said partner, and that's just really the right word. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Heather.
All right. Well, great having you today. For our listeners out there, Comcast Business offers Ethernet, internet, Wi-Fi, mobile, voice, TV, and managed enterprise solutions to help organizations of all sizes transform their business. Talk to us today to find out how we can help your business grow and thrive. And you can find the Unscripted Leadership Podcast published monthly, so we hope you will continue to tune in with us next month and beyond. Thanks all.